So the request to speak system is a system that's been in use at the Arizona State Legislature to try and get feedback from people about different bills. So the way that the request to speak system works is a little antiquated because you need someone to either go to the Tucson office or to the Capitol in Phoenix to be able to register. But once you've registered, you can record your position on any bill anywhere in the world. So if people have an issue where they'd like to sign up but aren't able to make it, if they send me an email at dhernandez@azleg.gov, my assistant and I will gladly set up the account for you. You'll have to go in and change the password because we usually do a basic password to get you started, and then you have to go in and change it yourself. But if folks would like to register, not a problem, and my assistant and I are happy to help folks get registered for that. But the big thing is request to speak is a system that is used at the committee level. And what that means is when a bill has been assigned to committee and it's scheduled to be heard in a meeting, you can go in and say you are supportive, opposed, or neutral. And right now, during the time of COVID, you're actually able to sign up to speak remotely. So if somebody sees a bill, we've already heard the first set of bills. So the deadline for bills to be heard in committee in the House has already passed for House bills. But next week is what's called crossover week, where we're going to be trying to pass bills out of the House to the Senate and vice versa. So the week after that is when we start hearing Senate bills for the first time in the legislative session. So if folks are keeping an eye on specific issues, you can actually register for those bills as they're coming over to the House. And when they get scheduled for committees, make your comments be known. There are a lot of different things that you can do within RTS. You can write out a statement or a comment, or you can put a little thing that says, I want to testify if necessary, or I do want to testify on a bill. So the more we can get people to sign up for request to speak, I think the better it is on all sides to have feedback from individuals. But I will give one caveat. If you are working as a part of an organization, make sure you put the name of the organization, because we've had a couple of instances where people sign in opposed or supportive of a bill, but they've not put the name of their organization. And then it becomes really confusing because we don't know, is this individual somebody who's representing themselves or an organization? So if you are representing a group, make sure that you put the name of the group and that you don't put it in as self.
What are your assignments this in this session?
Yeah, so I'm serving on the Education Committee, which meets Tuesday afternoons. And then the second committee that I'm on is the Military Affairs and Public Safety Committee, and that meets on Monday afternoons. So we've had a lot of interesting bills coming through this year related to education, a lot of actually decent bills that I think are really important to make sure that we're providing flexibility to schools during this difficult time. So there was a couple of bills that just moved through this week that would provide greater flexibility on what's called seat time. So that way we're not having to hold districts responsible for people having to be in person in the classroom each and every single day, when obviously that's not been the reality for most schools. But we have quite a few bills that I'm working on. One that has to do with an emergency appropriation for the arts community. So throughout the state of Arizona, especially in places like Tubac, where we know arts are so important, a lot of nonprofits that work in the community in regards to arts have either shut down entirely for months or sporadically been open and then closed. So I worked with the Citizens for the Arts, and we actually got a bill passed in appropriations that we're waiting to see if we can get it passed in the Senate, which would provide a $5 million one-time influx of cash for these nonprofits to be able to sustain them during COVID. And we've gotten a lot of support. It was a bipartisan bill. So that was one of the big priorities that I'm working on. I also this week passed a bill in the Judiciary Committee. It's kind of a specialty thing, but it's one that's really important. It takes away a certain kind of repossession. So a couple of years ago, there was an unscrupulous lawmaker who his brother owned a car finance operation that's a subprime car finance. So it's usually targeting low income and high minority populations. So what would happen is, instead of going through the regular civil process where if you don't make your payments, they take you to court and then they repossess. After a certain number of missed payments, it allowed the car dealer and the creditor to say that this car had been stolen. So then it would be on law enforcement to actually be the ones to repossess it because it was a stolen vehicle, which led to really dangerous situations for many people, particularly those of color, where if you've missed one or two car payments, now you're in a situation where you're not just, having to pay back the loan that you are falling in behind on, but now you're getting arrested and there's potentially a dangerous situation because you've been labeled as having stolen a vehicle when you haven't stolen it, you just haven't necessarily made all the payments on time. So we would repeal that because no reputable car dealer uses these. These are subprime loans for cars that are really dangerous in targeting the low income community. And the full repeal of that passed in judiciary this week, and we're hoping to get it on the floor next week. Then I had a third bill that has to do with education. It's a very technical bill for school districts, but it essentially allows them to stop being hit by the auditor general for doing a common practice, which is providing food at trainings and meetings, particularly for staff. So it's been a tiny thing, but every year there are school districts that get into trouble because they'll provide granola bars at their trainings for their teachers. And then that's technically illegal because we never explicitly gave school districts the ability to provide free food during events like trainings. So those are the three bills that I currently have that are my bills that are moving, but there are several other measures that I'm working on that are moving through, including a bill where I introduced a House version and there was a Senate version having to do with mental health in our schools. Senator Bowie's version is moving first. So we're working to try and make sure that we're supporting him on all of that. So that way, when we get it to the House, we already have it potentially ready to go. The chairwoman of education is committed to hearing the bill once it comes over next week over crossover week.
Thank you, Daniel. That's tremendous. And I know you guys are hard at work up there because I've had troubles just getting hold of Bree. Sometimes you guys are so busy. So
Yeah.
Thank you all for your hard work. Tremendous.
Yeah, it's been a very busy session. So we've had about 1,800 bills that were introduced, making this one of the busiest sessions we've had really in the last 30 years. But the challenge is, other than my bill that has to do specifically with appropriations for the arts, we haven't really seen too many bills having to deal explicitly with COVID relief. We've seen a couple of things that make it a little bit easier, like the school districts being able to not be held liable for a letter grade this year and next year, which is a good step in the right direction, but that doesn't obviously provide relief. So I've been working with my colleagues to make sure we're shining attention to the fact that it's great that we're revisiting bills that died last year because of COVID, but our top priority needs to be COVID relief. And that's why I've been working with folks to try and make sure that we're shining a light on that issue.
Is there any bills that people should pay attention to that are not desirable that they should speak to as far as education?
There's quite a few, and I would actually say that there's one issue that's even more important that people kind of keep an eye on, and that's some of these voter suppression bills. So in the last election, voters in Arizona approved Prop 208, which provides an additional $934 odd million for public education. And now, because of that, some of my conservative colleagues are saying, let's raise the bar. So now, instead of it being a simple majority on a ballot initiative, we want it to be a 2/3 majority, which just moves the goalpost and makes it harder for voters to step in. Because what has happened for the last 30 years is the legislature has failed in its duties to fund things like public education. So because of that, the public has stepped up and done it themselves. But by moving the barrier and moving the goalpost, they're just trying to make it so that only the legislature is the one making decisions, when voters have shown that they are ready and willing to do what they have to ensure that our kids get the high quality kind of education that they deserve.
Thank you very much for your information today. And we will make sure that this gets posted on our video this coming week. So, Daniel, thank you for your time today. We appreciate it.
Perfect. And we'll talk to you at the next meeting.
Will do. Thank you, Daniel. Have a great
Bye.
day. Bye-bye.